Listo. Welcome everyone to the second episode of The Tag. We're here at the ToutSuite studio here in lovely downtown Napa and hosting a really dear friend of mine, Eric Jensen, who drove all the way from Paso, which is in the Central Valley for those who don't know.
But it's the Central Coast, it's not the Central
Valley. Okay. You're going to cut that, right? No, I'm kidding.
Central Valley.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We're gonna let.
The Central Valley's fucking Fresno and Modesto, dude. Bakersfield. You're just as close to them as me, man.
I know. All right. One of.
Can I say fuck? Is that okay?
Yeah. No.
Sorry, ladies.
And we want to thank our audience that's out there over that's watching the live stream. And also want to thank our live audience.
That's funny.
I know, it is right. But anyway,
let's hear it from the live audience. Come on, everyone. 500 people out there.
No, but again, I first met Eric back in early 2000s at the Hospice de Rhone, which is a festival down in Paso where the focus is on Rhone varietals, and there's a lot of people that I respect in the business, but people always talk about my stories sometimes, but even I think one of the great stories out there, I think that a lot of people might not know, is Eric Jensen's. We have similar backgrounds in that we both kind of left our first or primary careers and decided to jump into the wine business. I think one of the big differences is, unlike in my case, Eric had a family, kids, and they decided they were going to, I don't know how you convince your wife to allow you to do that, but you just kind of got up and packed up the bags and left the Los Angeles area in the business that you knew, which was music, to venture up to Paso, where you didn't really know anyone. And it's pretty, I think it's a fascinating story. I think the fact that you're self-taught from a farming standpoint, which first and foremost you're probably proudest of, into winemaking, and you've really teamed up with a great group of people down there, and you guys are kind of at the very top of the game when it comes to boutique Rhone producers from the Central Coast.
The Central Valley, huh?
Yes. No. So, what made you decide to do that?
Well, thank you first of all for such a kind intro. Yeah, we did pack up. We had got married there. It was really odd. We were driving around Santa Barbara and Napa looking for somewhere to get married. We went up north, went down south, and one day we were, kind of hungover and still wanting to kind of party. And someone said, "Man, come to Paso Robles. It's cool. It's like an outlaw town. Like, it's just cool. There's like no rules." So we went up there and immediately fell in love, and we got married up there. And I walked in the house one day in Newport Beach, and we just had enough of the traffic and excess and more lifestyle. And so we said, let's roll. And I said, let's just go to Paso. Let's sell everything and go to Paso. I want to farm. I've never worked with my hands. I've cheated God my whole life. Honest story. And, I used to brag about hiring a landscaper, a gardener. And I said, I'm going to farm. And so I went up there and I met Justin Smith. So not self-taught, you had said that, and I would be remiss if I took any credit for that. Justin and his father really taught me everything about farming. His dad was unbelievable to me. And then, of course, Stefan next door helped out a tremendous amount. But so, yeah, we just picked up and went, and we found a property first, but it was, on the area we really didn't think we could achieve this level with. And then me and Justin were looking with the realtor one day, and we pulled in and we said, this is it. And I just wanted to be a grower at first and sell to everybody, and got the bug and studied under Justin and Stefan for about 3 years, and that was it.
Were they ever they were obviously helping you make the wines, but you from the very beginning, what I meant by self-taught was you didn't go to school for it.
Nope,
I mean, you kind of, I've always said, winemaking's a lot like being a chef. You can learn by going to school, going to the Culinary Institute, or you can learn by on the job, and that's basically
exactly what I did on both levels. I mean, I was on a tractor starting in 2000. I was on a quad every day. I was, calling I remember calling Justin. I called Justin at 9:30 in the morning. That fucking quad won't start. I knew nothing. So every single item my whole life was with a phone. Shit, I hadn't done anything. So and I remember meeting you at hospice. And it was funny because you were launching Realm. You had already launched it. Maybe it was your first or second vintage.
I think that was it 2004 when we met? 2004.
Yeah.
So we had not released wine, but we were getting ready.
You were getting ready to.
Yeah.
And Pax, as per usual, was being a douchebag to me, and he was what do you want? What kind of wine you want? And I remember you finally kind of came to my rescue in the conversation. I don't know if you remember this. You said, you'll find your way. You'll know exactly what you want, and you'll mold your brand around that. And I said, yeah, what he said, dickhead, So, anyways, yeah, that was it. I remember that moment. It was at Saxon. It was at Justin Smith's house.
At his house, yeah.
So that was that. I knew my heart at that point. I had found Syrah and Grenache, and I felt that was where my heart was, and I knew that's where I kind of the direction I wanted to go in. So, yeah.
Did you know those were the varietals you wanted to work with after you moved to Paso, or if you had ended up in Sonoma, would you have made?
I think the reason I fell in love with Paso was because I found a varietal that I'd never had. When I lived in Newport Beach, my wine cellar was Cabin Chardonnay. That was just what it was. And so when you do that to yourself, any varietal, when you do that to yourself for 15 years, and all of a sudden you find these, hey, wow, man, this is a big wine world. You're like, holy shit, this is cool. And so that's why I was so attracted to Syrah and Grenache. The Valley is people flying on jets, and I was running from that kind of. I didn't everything was looking at your kitchen and who had the nicest clothes and car. I was kind of getting away from that. And Paso, you could kind of hide and just be anybody. You could, I combed my hair today for the first time in a week. For you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. So what were did you have early influences? Like what were the brands that you had in your cellar before you actually got into the business? Like what were you collecting?
Oh, well, fuck Napa Cab. Not Realm, because you weren't around. Or I would have drank what you're making, and, I was a bit originally, like everybody else, a silver oak guy. What?
Let's go on.
That's funny.
Do you know that guy?
No. Hello.
Hey, Buster, how are you?
Hey, Buster.
Hey.
They'll get you on here shortly.
Originally Silver Oak. I got to be honest.
Yeah.
I was at those release parties. I was, just. I'd 8 cases. Give me as much.
I probably ran into you at some point in one of those parties because I used to go to those, and then Groth had one.
I used to go across the street to Groth. We sneak into Groth, and my buddy gave him his business card. They were in the business, and theirs was invite only. Silver Oaks was open.
Yeah. Right on. So we have someone that just signed in, Buster Brown, one of our longtime supporters and big fan of Justin's. And so I called him up earlier today to see if he would come on. And
well, I don't care if he's a big fan of Justin. Is he a big fan of Eric Jensen? A big fan of Booker. Who's moderating this panel, Buster? Jesus.
I'm a great fan of you both.
Yeah. Hey, Buster. Thank you for coming online. So I know that you're a Syrah producer, a Rhone producer, but you've also ventured into other varietals like Tempranillo and little Cabernet Franc.
Yeah, the fun thing, I did Cab Franc. I actually pulled it out. Cab Franc, as you know, is extremely difficult. I mean, want to blend it, gets herbaceous and weird. Tempranillo is something that does awesome in Paso, as does Grenache. My thought was, why the fuck do I have to be married to any one varietal? And why can't I? Paso does a lot of things really good. Unfortunately, Paso, one thing, the area I'm in does not do good is Cabernet. And so I really don't have the choice in my vortex where I'm at with where I'm at with L'Aventure and me and Torin. But it does Tempranillo, unbelievable. It does Grenache, I believe, as well as anywhere. So I just stick to what I know works in a lot like Napa, you'll go 1 mile and there'll be 15 inches more of rain than we are. It's a psychotic area. I drive to one part of my ranch and I freeze on the quad every day. It's like, what the microclimates are crazy.
Yeah.
So anyways, I try to do what we do well, not married to roads.
Yeah. No, that's I think that's smart. I've always been a big fan of your Tempranillo. I've had several times, so I've always had.
We'll crack a bottle tonight. This one just got bottled last week.
Awesome. What? So I talked to a good friend of yours earlier today, and Bobby Fox.
Bobby Fox.
Yeah, and he had nothing but great things to say.
That's bullshit. I was just up at the snow with him. He didn't have anything good to say.
But no, he brought up.
Why are you talking to Bobby? Why does everyone talk to Bobby Fox?
I like. Who doesn't like Bobby?
Everybody likes him. That bothers me.
I know. Well, we like Bobby, and he wanted me to bring up a couple of things.
All right, let's go. So this is where the party starts? Let's go.
It's all good. No, one of the things he brought up was, so you went to Cal State Fullerton.
I did. I went to Cal State Fullerton.
What was your major?
Business.
Business.
Yeah,
Awesome. So he told me that you lived in a fraternity,
I did.
and he told me you probably never paid any dues.
I might have had some back dues. I'm not gonna lie to you. They scholared me on a lot of things.
No, he told me you were a very savvy businessman because you somehow figured it out how you could live there during the 4 years, and you convinced all the pledges to buy you all the burritos and everything, which I think is pretty impressive. Because
hazing was legal back then. So, I mean, I didn't haze, I made them bring toilet paper every week. I made them buy me food. Just standard fleecing stuff. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it at the time. It was the era,
Yeah, no, definitely. And he also brought up a nice, he told me to bring up the Xenon.
My old bug, yeah.
Yeah, I heard it was quite the
$200 bug, yeah.
the magnet.
Yeah, it was the magnet.
But so how did you? So before you got into wine, you were obviously in music. You were a promoter.
I was actually in brokerage sales, like real estate trust, garbage stuff, oil and gas, and this stuff was. I didn't realize it at first. I thought these were great investments, and I was selling. They were all high risk. So immediately when I realized that, I'm like, man, I got to get out of this stuff. So I did that for a year only, and then I got out. And I tried a real estate development project, and while I was doing that, I won a beauty pageant. I outbid everybody at this deal on a beauty pageant to judge Miss Weintropic International. No lie. O.J. Simpson, Jim Kelly, the old Bills quarterback, Gerardo, Wolfman Jack, and I saw this thing being put on, and I saw Hawaiian Tropic putting this on, and everyone else was paying his bills for him. All these sponsors, and in those days, sponsorship was a negligible thing.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to be the first guy back in '90 to bring sponsors to the concert business. So I started concerts, never around basically concerts, but around sponsors, paying for the bills before I opened the doors. So.
Hold on. So we have Buster on the. We have Buster. Can you hear me? Yeah. There's Carol.
Hey, how are you? I was just getting ready to ask where your beautiful wife was, but there she is.
I'm here.
What? Do you guys have any questions for Eric or anything that you've been wanting to ask him or?
So, Eric, I've been buying your wines for years. How has your technique evolved over the years?
I like to try to keep my alcohols down. I think the big thing for me, to be just totally blunt, is alcohol and VA, making sure they're low, so the wines can drink better. There's a fine line though, VA is too low, the wine doesn't elevate as much early. So there's a sweet spot that we found, we believe our sweet spot. And alcohol wise, the older I get, I just can't drink the wines that are really high in alcohol. So it's tough for me. So we try to target using shade cloth, picking earlier, but really shade cloth has been the thing that's worked the best for us. So lower alcohols, lower VAs, more restrained wines, less oak. We've gone from 70% oak down to probably 20. So.
Okay.
Have you
I've
had,
noticed less oak use, so, and that's good. I like the taste of it.
Yeah, and 13 that we just came out with, there was a little more, unfortunately, because we're on that cycle of barrels where when we grew, we didn't have enough, and we don't like to buy too much. This next year we did. We just went out and bought, and we just crossed our fingers. When you're buying other people's used barrels, so less oak. Definitely, we'll get right back to that. The 12s almost had no oak. The 13s got a little bit. But moving to this next vintage, we'll be back to that level of maybe 20% wood. Rhones don't take wood like Cabernet does.
Okay.
is that
Is all the wine still coming from your vineyards?
Yeah, until this year in 13, we've got a new wine called Full Draw, and it's from my neighbor's vineyard. It's a Grenache Syrah Mervet, and it's a vineyard adjoining mine. So basically it's like my vineyard. My assistant winemaker owns it. It's phenomenal. It's farmed extremely well. It's cool. It's called Full Draw. So it definitely will be one of our top brands. And then next year I'll start buying, because at 5,000 cases we just can't accommodate the list anymore, and so we've got to grow. So what we've done over the past 2 years is we've gone out and found the best locations that we can find, and nurtured relationships. And so now we've waited, we've tasted the fruit first in barrel from other people. So next year, our first commitment to other vineyards comes in, and we'll just do vineyard designates, just kind of like Juan does with the various vineyards.
do you see that, is that a movement that you see across Paso in terms of less oak, lower alcohols? Because in Napa, we're starting to see that with Cabernet. Not necessarily less oak, but definitely lower alcohols compared to where they were 10 years ago.
I think it is. I mean, you tell me when you go out, Buster, when you're at home and you and Carol open a bottle, if it's 16.2, I mean, you have a quarter of the bottle and you're like loopy. And we want to kill the bottle, don't we?
I don't think that stopped Buster anytime.
But I mean, when you're drinking, if a wine can be as good at 14.2, why not try it? Now, sometimes, listen, Mother Nature gets away from you, and it just is what it is. And I mean, I guess you could de-alc, but the reality is Mother Nature depicts a lot of that. So I think the trend is definitely everywhere is lower alcohol. Listen, we follow France hundreds of years later. I mean, right?
Yeah.
We think concrete's the greatest thing in the world. They've been using it since day one. So. I mean, their alcohols are low. And now it's funny because their alcohols in the Rhone are at 16.2, and they of course, they write 13.8 or 14.
Yeah.
And their wines are all in the 16s now. So maybe they're starting to follow us. So.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it has to do with global warming, so that's probably a big part of it too. I know in Bordeaux they're dealcoholizing quite a bit. What about, are you... now that your kids are getting bigger, I know they're busy with sports and they're really active, and you're obviously always coaching them. Mm-hmm. And are you going to try to? How old's your oldest son?
He's a sophomore.
Sophomore. Are you going to try to get him into the wine business, or?
We try to force him to make. I don't know that there's anybody. Every winemaker probably tries to make their kids drink at night. I mean, most guys, like my neighbors at Castoro, since our kids were 10, they poured them, a pinch of wine and water every night. So it was half wine, half water, and more of a European mentality. And we've tried to get the kids to taste every wine we've ever made, just a sip, and they're still to the point where they hate it. It all tastes alike. Blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. I don't know about you. I know what I was doing as a sophomore, and it wasn't drinking wine.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't thinking about working in a vineyard either. It was, but of course, that's where they've grown up. That's all they know. So we'll see. I told them, better make up your mind quick, man.
So you're at 5,000 cases now. Where do you see Booker? Where do you guys see yourself 10 years from now?
It's a good question. I always swore I'd never be more than 2,000 cases, and then I said 4,000. So. I think for me, it's like you. If I can make 15,000 cases at a level, why wouldn't I? But to me, the level stopped where I was, and it wasn't until farming caught up in Paso. What's held Paso back is it's always been a tonnage area. And so we've never farmed to that high level. So I don't know where the stop is. The stop is when I taste a wine that I bring in and say, I got to bulk this out because I don't like it. And I don't know where that's at. We'll find out this year. I'm bringing in some new vineyards. So.
Yeah, no, I know for us, we're at 3,500 cases, and we know that there's definitely advantages to being a little bit bigger in that you have more leverage with the growers, with the various vineyards, with vendors. So it's a very, sometimes bigger is in a lot of ways is better. But yeah, no, that's always a challenge that we have, and I've always kind of looked at it in our case. It's just, we're pretty organic in terms of the growth. It's a lot of it's by feel. What's the demand like? How's it selling?
Yeah.
And that's a big part of it. But what about when it comes to Napa? Is getting to the point now where there's going to be the days coming where building a winery is going to be pretty much impossible.
Yeah.
It's already getting more and more difficult. How many years do you think? I mean, Paso's got to, they're going to get to that point, because there's I would imagine a lot of the locals are probably not happy with much of the growth and a lot of the traffic that happens on weekends.
Paso's learned a lot from Napa. The mistakes that Napa made when they wrote a book about it, right? So it's legendary, the mistakes that were made with traffic, with the lack of infrastructure. So we'll see. Water's the big issue. I mean, everyone's worried about global warming. You just said, forget global warming. Water's the issue. The world's running out of water, and with Paso, we're running out of water. Now, I'm a firm believer that Mother Nature will heal that, and next year will bring heavy rains, which is what a lot of the, meteorologists that get paid to forecast that for insurance companies have been suggesting. Who knows? But water's the big issue, and that's what's slowing Paso down. And there's a water regional quality board. They're the ones leaning on people. It's not necessarily building. Building is an issue, but really it's water.
Yeah. No, we've actually looked at a few properties, and that's been definitely the biggest concern up here. What so as we're winding down here, is there anything else that you want people to know about Booker, the brand? One of the things I think people might want to hear is why the name Booker. And
as far as knowing about the brand, try the wine, and if you like it, buy it. If you don't. Wine's very personal. You know that. So yeah, it's just the reality. We don't. There's so many choices out there. There's so many good wines that try to try as many as you can. And Booker came from Orphan Brothers. When we bought the property, we bought it from the Booker Trust, and there was these two brothers that had lived their entire life doing philanthropy. Basically, all they did was work 7 days a week, and they helped everybody around them. If a guy got cancer, they farmed his land, and at the end of the year, when they got paid for when they bundled it, they sold the head, put a bag of cash on the table. Legit story. We were so touched by all those stories that when we couldn't think of a name, we're like, man, the name's right in front of us. It was Booker the whole time. And and they didn't drink, and they didn't grow grapes. Probably wouldn't approve of that. But to keep their spirit alive, it was so important to us, because that's the kind of life and neighbor I wanted to be to my neighbors. I wanted to be the guy that, hey, you need something, you can count on me. So that's where the name Booker came from.
so you mentioned that they could use.
I'm sorry, we do have a Twitter question before we're out of time.
Okay.
So they are asking, you have a lot of Pabst Blue Ribbon on the table. Is it significant?
If you ever tasted Realm, you'd know why the Pabst Blue Ribbon's there.
Of course.
I hope that answers the question.
So for those that can't see, we just had Bill Harlan walk in. He doesn't want to come out in front of the camera, but thank you for coming. No, but I want to thank everyone for. Thank everyone for being a part of this, and it's been. Until next time, this has been a lot of fun, and thank you, Eric, for making a 4-hour trek. Really appreciate it, and always a great excuse to get together and hang out.
Absolutely. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
All right.
Hi, Buster.
Show your nipples.
Now do we get to drink, or how's this thing work?
Yeah.